Thank you for having me. First of all, I'd like to say thanks to the team behind that event today. It's a pleasure being here, and I know what it takes, what an effort it takes to run things like that. My name is Heiko Grein. I'm kind of like born 65-ish, grown up in the 80s, and I'm basically a kind of 80s DIY kid. So Songs and Whispers, the idea behind Songs and Whispers is basically creating something which is a network, which is organized by many people. It's not me, even though I'm on stage right now. There's a lot of people behind me organizing events, all sorts of events, small events. You can see a couple of selection of pictures on the screen. My musical DNA is rooted deeply in the 80s, as mentioned earlier. And when I was a kid, there was a lot of things possible. It seems to be possible without technology. So literally, the time I'm talking about is a time without the internet. So when we started, friends of mine did stuff in these days. They did concerts and everything else, which inspired me a lot. So this is basically going into the DNA of Songs and Whispers. Songs and Whispers is currently a music label. It's a publisher, music publisher. We're operating as a recording studio. We're providing several services as a publicist for emerging artists. And we're doing a lot of things beside the music industry, which is connecting to refugee camps as well. So, which was an inspiring talk, thanks for that. But also we're trying to connect schools and communities and local communities. So that all wouldn't be possible without artists contributing their art as part of the network. So, and I was thinking that it should be me talking all the time here on stage, so I got some of the artists, asked them to contribute their perspective on Songs and Whispers as a network, as something they experience working with. So actually this talk is going to be joined by Daisy Chapman from the UK, Bristol, UK, by Ben Lorentzen from Norway, nowadays residing in New Jersey, and also Garner Cohn, an Australian artist the network we're working with since 2014, something like that. You see pictures coming, and that's actually Daisy Chapman.
39 years of age, born in London, but currently residing in the southwest of England, which is where I discovered my art, Bristol, as a university student with a classical music background. But it took me 3 years, so all of university, to discover who I was as a musician and discover the people who eventually became my musical cohorts. And looking back now on how I started out, I realised that the early years of a musician's life are all about setting goals, and one ultimate one which is reached through a series of smaller ones. So in my case, the ultimate dream was to be a full-time musician and to tour the world. And the imminent dreams that lay out ahead of us are like a pathway to success, starting out fairly benign, but gaining gravitas as you progress. My first goal was just to record an album, followed by playing a gig, and then subsequent goals came on fairly swiftly to headline, to play a Saturday night, to headline a Saturday night, to play in London, to headline London, and so on over the next couple of years. But that ultimate dream was still far from reach. It didn't take long to realise that the feeling of the financial pinch would be the kickstart that I needed to really reach the ultimate dream. How could I be a full-time musician if I had a full-time office job? So I quit, and my first stop was the USA. Booking a tour in America on your own with absolutely no contacts didn't end up being as hard as I thought. I quickly became a surfing salesman using my Englishness as the perfect pitch on email, armed with a map, and before long I'd built up a list of coffee houses neatly pinned down the highway one of California that offered me a gig in exchange for a tip jar. It was grueling, it was lonely, I didn't make any money, but I saw some sights. I learned to become very resourceful. For example, I bought a mic stand from a well-known music store in San Francisco, only to return it to the same chain in San Diego a few weeks later, all packaged up and ready for a refund. And the exchange rate had shifted so slightly that I even made a profit. But whilst the US trip was in planning, I was introduced through a friend to a label manager the Grein. And suddenly I had a European door open for me and a new imminent dream to tour Europe. So we formed an alliance and crossed the channel, and after a series of small weekend trips, I can remember an email from Heiko that would probably change his future and certainly change mine. He said, I have an idea, a circuit of venues, on a monthly basis, a tour on repeat, with a different artist each month. I don't know what to call it, I'll get back to you. So it was his epiphany moment, probably on one of his runs, and Songs and Whispers was born shortly after. So in 2008, I joined the circuit in its second month. 7 nights of shows in different locations, varying in design: a cinema, a theatre, an ice cream parlour, a hotel lobby, cafe garden, all unique and not necessarily obvious locations for a show. But Heiko saw a space and made it a gig. Because what is the cinema if it's not showing a film? It's a theatre. It has seats and it has a stage. And what is a hotel lobby if it's not checking in guests at a busy time? It's a marble-floored acoustic haven. So this was somewhat unorthodox, but I was touring. And after this circuit, I was being invited back for bigger and better shows, driving myself across the country in wind and snow and writing songs about my experiences. The door was open. I wasn't quite touring the world, but the opportunities were flooding in. So whether it be scooting around Europe as part of a prog rock band, sharing the stage with Deep Purple and Hawkwind, or waltzing across the globe with an all-female act performing on International Women's Day, I was, and I am, certainly achieving some form of that ultimate goal. And only last year I sat at a Steinway piano in Taiwan asking myself, is this it? So has my dream shifted? I'm not famous, I'm not rich. I sometimes still have to teach piano or play in bars to survive. I'm a mother, I'm a wife, I'm a homeowner. But surely ultimately, all an artist really wants is a space to play and an audience to listen. And Songs and Whispers provide that velvet rope between artist and audience in a once vacant corner of a room. So after all, as Shakespeare once said himself, all the world is a stage, and Songs and Whispers have certainly made it so for me.
So far, Daisy Chapman, one of the artists we started working with in 2008, and she's a kind of good example. You see still some pictures of kids we've been working with in local communities. We have several schemes. We're approaching schools, but also refugee camps, trying to utilize music as the kind of universal language, getting people together and exchanging ideas, exchanging emotions, and making people understand what it is. This all keeping in mind that music is also a product, that we have artists we're working with who have to make a living. And I think it's been expressed quite clearly by Daisy Chapman what it takes to make this work for a time period of maybe 8 or 9 years. It takes time to develop things.
Hello there, I'm Ben Lawrence.
And that's Ben Lawrence.
I'm a Norwegian singer-songwriter currently residing here in New Jersey, United States of America. I started my career a couple of decades ago being signed to EMI Publishing and having distribution through labels such as Universal. I put out a couple of records with my band at the time. I have currently, or recently, put out 2 solo records on smaller labels. There are definitely advantages in being with bigger labels as you get more money, bigger teams, more hoo-hoo when you release your stuff. However, unless you're the flavor of the month, you can very quickly find yourself being sidelined and sometimes not even getting your music out there, being shelved, as they say. Now, how do you get yourself out there when you're doing it on your own or being with smaller labels? That is the challenge. You're up against the fact that the market is washed with big corporate money, as we know, and they're flooding platforms such as Spotify, iTunes, and Tidal. They, through big companies like Live Nation, they basically control the live scene as well. So it's very hard to get into the market. And that's where I think the genius of a company like Songs and Whispers comes in, because they have discovered the niche that is right below those big labels, but and yet above, let's call it the ground level, where you basically operate all by yourself. I met Songs and Whispers through a platform called Reverb Nation, and we decided to work together. They set up a tour with me in Northern Germany and Central Europe, and we did about 25 dates together. And I didn't know what to expect, but I was blown away by the experience. I saw that people came out mainly for 3 reasons. The branding that was done by Songs and Whispers over a period of time, the culture or the audience that the venue themselves cultivated, and third, the PR outreach. I realized that people would check out through the in-local media and social media what was happening in their hometown, and if that happened to be me that particular night, they would click on links, check it out, and if they liked it, they would come out. And not only did they come out, but they came out enthusiastically, in that they were attentive to what I was putting out there, and also willing to tip and buy CDs. Some of the venues were slightly untraditional. Of course, we played pubs and we played smaller concert halls. But I also played movie theaters. I played house concerts, coffee shops. And if you think about it, the relationship between, say, a movie theater or a cafe, inside a movie theater, the relationship is obvious, as the audio-visual experience is something that the audience comes for anyway. And this whole experience pertains to that, although it might be slightly different. I also played a couple of record stores, and I think there's a huge potential there, as this newfound love for LPs and cassettes is spreading, and we see that people do interact with record stores. They do sell LPs and cassettes. It's possible to make a business and a living out of it, and it makes sense then to have artists potentially come in and perform at such places. When big corporate money is flooding the market with a particular type of artists chasing the flavor of the month, you will then lose out on a particular segment of the market where audience and new artists can discover each other. And again, I think that's where a company like Songs and Whispers comes in. And I only wish that we had similar reach, similar companies here in the United States, Canada, Australia, Asia. So I look forward to working more with them and with others who might discover this potential.
Ben is referring to the fact that he, as an artist, being in the market for about maybe 20-30 years, is discovering a lot of issues, a lot of difficulties of spreading his own name, bringing his own name around. Without technology, this wouldn't be possible. So actually, looking at this time with a lot of social media in place, the easy way of communicating with each other, Songs and Whispers is an easy thing in terms of getting things done. That was quite completely different in the 80s and 90s when other people started live music events or had been putting on live music shows across the globe. Garner Cronin, in his last part, will be referring to the fact that even though that communication is easy nowadays, it becomes tricky as well, because we are facing the fact that a lot of people don't seem capable of managing social media properly, that we lost the capacity and the ability of talking to each other in a complex way, in a reliable way, that we lost connection, and that it's way more important to get back into a certain mindset of being aware of others and taking care of the communication and the fact talking to people and making people understand each other better. This is something Garner Cronin, an artist from Australia we're working with, will be referring this last part.
developing within a grassroots network. And that kind of environment and model has led me to meet some of the most inspiring and influential people. I've heard stories that I could have never dreamed of. I've shared stages with so many amazing creative minds and sung along with thousands of different people, shared emotional connections, intellectual connections, critical connections with audiences from so many diverse cultural and linguistic backgrounds. I think it's important that we still recognise the current boundaries of technology and also at the same time the immense value and the importance of our present moment and the energy that we give and receive to each other in our collective community. Understanding the importance of real, tangible, human connection in art, but also in industry, that will allow us to better integrate and balance this with the ever-growing technological world as we move into the future.
At the nightclub, they're howling for forgiveness.
While one argues we've never been more connected in our world, the other side is not wrong in that we've never been less physically or emotionally connected. And not only that, we're not in control of any of these connections anymore. We're forfeiting them to organisations and corporations just for the sake of some convenience. More and more art is being created in digital sphere, but I believe now more than ever, and moving into the future, it's integral that we don't lose sight of our personal connections with each other. It's important that artists and industry, moving into the future, make a conscientious effort to recognise the human benefits of an actual, real, personal connection like we're having now. And how we're going to manage these kind of personal connections and integrate them with the technologies of tomorrow.
Looks like a country kind of shop. Take what you can get. Take what you can get.
Hopefully I could provide some interesting insights in Songs and Whispers as a network rooted deeply in 80s DIY tradition and ideas, with additions by Garner Cronin, Ben Lawrenson and Daisy Chapman as a kind of representative of a worldwide music network which is currently based in Bremen and operating as a label, publisher and manager. I think even though they're all different individuals, and that's what we are, there's one thing shared, and I think that's the strong belief that we can make this world a better place. And even though we have to consider, and that's one of the quotes I'm stealing from Joe Strummer, the future is unwritten. Thank you.